Hello everybody. Welcome to the first Zoom meeting of the Hemlock Society of San Diego. This is our regular monthly meeting, but since we're all quarantined, we have to do it on Zoom. I'm taking the place of Barry Price, our president, because he is lost in the jungle of technology. So we hope we can pull this off without too many glitches, and we appreciate your patience in watching this. It's a very important meeting today because we're discussing the Final Exit Network, an organization that many of you don't know anything about or don't know enough about. We have an excellent speaker, and I'm just going now to start with the background of how the Final Exit came to be. Because if you're in the Right to Die movement long enough, you realize that it's progression of things, incremental, and over the years that have led us to where we are today, which is not satisfactory, but it is a lot better than it was 20 years ago. So let me just say that the Final Exit Network is a direct descendant of the Hemlock Society USA, which is no longer in existence, and I'll explain why. But it was founded in 1980 by Derek Humphrey, who started this organization after helping his wife die and writing a book about it called Jean's Way. I was on Derek's board, and we made a 5-year plan actually to change the law. Spent a lot of time trying to do that. Our two missions were to change the law to permit assisted dying and to help people prepare for a peaceful death. In 1991, Derek wrote a revolutionary book called Final Exit, which was a guide to self-deliverance for people who were seriously ill. And in it he says this is not to be used, please, by people who are depressed or have another reason to want to end their lives, but just by people with serious illnesses. And in it he outlines several methods for achieving a peaceful death, and that was very helpful to give to people when they called the Hemlock Society and wanted help because they were desperate and wanted to die peacefully. In 1987, there were many chapters of the National Hemlock Society, I think around 90. In 1987, the San Diego became a chapter and is now what you see, the Hemlock Society of San Diego, no longer a chapter because there is no National Hemlock Society, but an autonomous group. So after Final Exit came out, the same year, there was another revolutionary happening, and that was Jack Kevorkian. In 1991, Jack Kevorkian helped Janet Atkins, a Hemlock member actually from Oregon, who had Alzheimer's disease. And he helped 130 people die from 1991 to 1998 when he was tried and imprisoned for helping Tom Yauk die, which is another story, which we're not going to deal with here. But you can see that there are efforts now to make it easier for people to die. The book, Jack Kevorkian, and then in 1996, Compassion in Dying, a smaller organization out of Washington, won 2 cases in 2 U.S. district courts. Both courts ruled that assisted dying is a constitutional right for terminally ill people. Unfortunately, in 1997, the Supreme Court heard the appeal and ruled that it was not a constitutional right, but it was up to each state to decide. I came on board the National Hemlock Society as president in 1996, so all this was going on. And when we heard from people who called us in desperation that how do we die, we would say, well, read Final Exit and we wish you a good journey. And sometimes we'd answer some questions about what's in the book, but that was all we could do, which to me and to some of our board and staff did not seem enough. So I decided we could train Hemlock members to be volunteers to actually go to people's homes and instruct them in how to use the methods that we did know about at no cost to them anywhere in the country, and hope that it would work. Our lawyers told us that if we didn't do two things, one is if we did not provide the means, and two, if we did not touch the patient, touch the person in any way, or provide direct physical contact, then those two things would constitute assisted suicide, which was not what we were doing. We were helping people end their own lives just by giving information and support. So we trained, by 1998, we had trained 28 volunteers who, under the direction of Dr. Dick McDonald, our medical director, went forth all over the country to work with people. They went in teams of two who wanted more information and then would later decide whether they wanted to use our methods or not. At that time, the only method we had was, which was a big step forward because we couldn't get doctors to prescribe any drugs, which was the helium method, the inhalation of an inert gas. And that worked actually up until about 2003 when the helium was diluted with air, and then we switched to another method, which is nitrogen, which Sally will demonstrate today. In 1998, Jack Kevorkian went to prison, and our Caring Friends program proceeded with many, I might say, very generous donations from people who were so grateful to have this service that was available to them, to then Hemlock members. In 2004, though, the Hemlock board decided to do two things. One is to change the name from Hemlock to End of Life Choices. And the second thing was to merge Hemlock, or End of Life Choices, with a smaller organization out of Washington called Compassion in Dying. The resulting organization is Compassion and Choices, a big organization now in the United States. But Hemlock became extinct as a national organization. Some of the chapters continued. I think the Hemlock Society of San Diego is the only now viable chapter in the country. After the merger, it was apparent to many of us that the new organization was not going to be very friendly toward the Caring Friends program. And the provisions were becoming more strict, more restrictive, and people were becoming more cautious. And we decided to have a meeting in Chicago in 2005 to form a new organization just to perpetuate the work of the Caring Friends program. Derek Humphrey, who had been initially very skeptical about this, came to the meeting, lent his name to the organization, Final Exit Network, and thus the Final Exit Network was formed. I wanted to show you the differences between the model that Final Exit Network adopted and the Oregon model. First of all, it was not a medical model that we adopted. People did not die by the use of drugs prescribed by doctors, nor was a doctor there with the person. It was just a trained, usually older, Hemlock member, a volunteer. And secondly, the requirement was not that the person be terminal. Sally will talk more about what the requirements are, but terminal illness, which is rather an irrelevant criterion, was not required to get the services of Final Exit Network. Even now, 23 years later, the Oregon model has only been adopted in 10 states. So there are many people who don't even have that as a fallback position if they met the criteria and if they found two doctors. So Final Exit Network is a national organization. Anybody in the United States can use the services. In the Oregon model, the person can die alone. All they have to do is ingest the medication. All the doctor does is prescribe. So technically, that's all there is in physician aid in dying. In the Final Exit Network model, there are two guides with you when you choose to use that method and end your life. The Final Exit Network services are free, except you have to buy the equipment, not from Final Exit Network. And the Oregon model, generally you have to pay a doctor or maybe not, and you have to buy the medication sometimes. And you have to be able to swallow in the Oregon model, which you do not in the final exit network model. So those are some of the differences, and it does make a difference. So this is how to contact the final exit network, and a big billboard that they once purchased, and the toll-free number that you can call that's on their website. And now I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Sally Hall, who is a trained licensed psychiatrist and has been a senior exit guide for Final Exit Network for many years, has worked all over the country, and is also on the medical evaluation committee. Sally, you're on.
Good afternoon. I am thankful to Faye for the nice introduction that she gave me. As she mentioned, I am a retired psychiatrist, and I am a senior guide and a member of the medical evaluation committee here on the Final Exit Network volunteer organization. And I am here today to tell you about how the Final Exit Network guide program works. So I know that some of you have been waiting to see this, and I'm very sorry that we could only get 100 of you in the Zoom room last time, and I assume that those of you who will be watching are the people that were left out in the cold. So we apologize that we didn't have a upgrade with our Zoom system, so you could all be in here and you'd have seen it, and I wouldn't have to do it a second time. So anyway, we'll do the best we can today. Faye gave quite a bit of history, and I'll repeat some of it. Final Exit Network is a small national right to die organization with about 3,000 members. And as Faye mentioned, it was formed in 2004 when End of Life Choices, which was to give credit to this organization, formerly the Hemlock Society, merged with Compassion in Dying to become Compassionate Choices. The guiding principle of the Final Exit Network is that we believe that competent adults who suffer irremediably from various medical problems, intractable pain from a constellation of chronic or progressive physical disabilities, or face the impending loss of autonomy and selfhood through dementia, they have a basic human right to choose to end their lives when they judge that the quality of life to be unacceptable to them. Our mission is to educate qualified individuals in a practical, peaceful way to end their life, offer a compassionate bedside presence, and defend their right to choose. Choosing to end one's own life, suicide in legal parlance, is not illegal. And it's not illegal to know about someone's self-deliverance plans or to be with them as long as you do not assist, if you're present when they choose to end their life and you're actually there. What we do is protected by the First Amendment right of free speech. We do not provide physical assistance, and we do not provide the means. Therefore, anyone wishing our support must be able to procure the equipment, assemble it, and operate it without any assistance. The method of self-deliverance we teach is the inert gas method. You can see over my shoulder that I actually, if you can see up there, have a nitrogen tank, which is the inert gas that we use, and kind of draped over that is the hood that allows you to actually inhale this gas. Kind of funny thing, when I showed this, I actually showed this before in our presentation, and I thought I was dressed with a nice top, but when I stood up and turned around, everybody could see that I was wearing some very old sweatpants. So I'm nicely dressed totally today, but I'm not going to take that risk of embarrassing myself. It is a speedy, certain, and comfortable solution way to end your life. It's legal, available, and relatively inexpensive. I'd say it's under $300 to purchase all of the equipment that you need. Anyone who's interested in the details or the how-to-it of the inert gas method should consult Derek Humphrey's downloadable PDF file called Final Exit 2020, which you can get at www.finalexitnetwork.org for $29. Or there's also Dr. Nietzsche and Stewart's The Peaceful Pill Handbook, which is available in digital or paper form for about $85 at peacefulpillhandbook.com. So those will give you the details of how to do it, part of this process. FEN carries out its mission through its Exit Guide program, offering its support in all 50 states to individuals who are suffering from intolerable medical circumstances, are mentally competent, want to end their lives, and meet our acceptance criteria for guide support. Potential applicants for guide support are referred to as clients, but our services are free. There's no cost to you. The program requires applicants to demonstrate serious physical suffering or an impending loss of selfhood, but it does not require that applicants be terminally ill or only have 6 months to live. This is a very big difference between our organization and the states, the 9 states in Washington, D.C. that have the Death with Dignity law. They have to be only going to be living 6 months or less to qualify for that service. As of June 7th, 2020, right now, today, those are the states that have it. We're often envious of Canadians who have a law that does not have this time limitation. So it's very different than what we have here. So let me tell you about the categories of illnesses that we support. There's 4 of them. That you have a serious physical disease, cancer, neurodegenerative, cardiac and pulmonary disorders, chronic somatic pain, a dementia, progressive type like Alzheimer's, which is the most you mostly know about, and there are some other types that are we see, and there's also something called normal pressure hydrocephalus that is actually presents as a dementia, but is very treatable. So we need to know what type of dementia you have. And the final one is a constellation of irreversible medical conditions, usually associated with old age, and that taken together seriously degrade a person's quality of life. We call this, some people call it old age rational suicide, and it's a person may have had a stroke or have an enlarged abdominal aorta or a number of things that if any of them worsened, they would likely end up in a care facility where they would be unable to carry out their wishes. And they don't want that to happen. And this is our 4th category that we accept. Though we recognize extreme suffering caused by emotional problems, we do not at this point accept people whose primary problem is mental illness. I actually think that this a change as people with this kinds of disease have enormous suffering, but at this point we do not offer that service to that kind of problem. Our guides provide support by offering education on reliable, time-tested methods of self-deliverance for clients who want that option. Safeguards are in place to ensure that the person's decision is voluntary and that's repeatedly stated as such. Potential clients usually learn about our organization through word of mouth or an internet search. The Hemlock Society of San Diego often makes many referrals to FEN, since we have the founder here, Faye. And you can find that, on our website, the details, the website and the phone number and so on. Trained coordinators respond to inquiries that are received through FEN's website. and our answering service. Again, the website, I'll repeat it several times so you can get it today, is finalexitnetwork.org. And the phone number at the answering service is 866-654-9156. We have 9 coordinators in our program that take up, divided the states and serve those states that they're assigned to, and they respond to all inquiries concerning the Exit Guide program. They answer questions, discuss options, explain our procedures, and direct callers to appropriate information resources. Many of the first contacts end right there, as callers are satisfied to have their questions answered and know what available options there are. If a potential client appears appropriate for guide support, the coordinators conduct an initial triage to screen them and to determine if they appear to meet the program's general acceptance criteria. The general criteria are that they're mentally competent adults, that they describe existing or reasonably anticipated unbearable suffering or an unacceptable, intolerable quality of life with no reasonable hope of improvement. They must be aware of their treatment options and either inform or express a willingness to inform close family members and intimate associates of their intent. We value both the client's autonomy as well as the client's relationship and strive to see that both are honored. Finally, clients must agree to submit a personal statement that is about a page long, that describes in their own words how their medical condition meaningfully reduces or will reduce their quality of life, including examples of current physical or mental decline. It lists the applicant's values as they pertain to end-of-life choices. Many people have been members of FEN or another organization, Hemlock, for years, and this is a value they've held for a long time. And it clearly states what they want from FEN. It has to be clear that they want support through whatever choice they want to make at the end of their life. And this is voluntary, and no one has urged them to do this separately from their own decision. So along with the personal statement, applicants must gather and submit medical records. For all categories of illness, medical records must document the alleged condition or conditions by physical examination, imaging studies, radiography, laboratory tests. We like to have thorough records. That most physicians conduct a complete history and physical. When you contact them, it gives a lot of information of social history and traces the progression of your disease, and that's a really adequate and good report for us to get. The records must confirm that the applicant experiences chronic, severe, uncontrolled pain and show evidence of the duration and tractable nature of the pain, and despite reasonable medical attention given to it. And for dementia, the records must confirm a diagnosis of cognitive impairment and provide evidence based on cognitive neurological test results, neuropsychological testing, or brain imaging studies, which are particularly helpful. When in the medical records on people with pain, there's often a discussion that they've been referred to a pain clinic, what medications they're taking for the pain, and what physical therapy they might have availed themselves of. So we like as complete a picture as we can get of the progression and treatment of their whatever problem they have. The appropriate time to apply for Exit Guide services when you, the client, anticipate wanting to exit within a year or less. We encourage everyone to think and plan ahead, but the Exit Guide program exists for those who are actively considering self-deliverance. For those who want to be prepared for the future, the coordinators can direct you to useful published resources such as those mentioned earlier. It is true that some of our applicants, may go, if they have a serious cancer, may go into remission. And they thought they were going to be progressing towards an exit soon, but they're feeling better and healthy. And I once had a person who I didn't hear for 6 years. But, we do the best we can to work with people who are actively thinking that they're going to be exiting soon. The application process begins when a coordinator receives the applicant's personal statement, the medical records, and the paperwork is appropriate and complete. The third part of this process is that the coordinator assigns a trained interviewer to call you up and interview you on the phone. This takes maybe 45 minutes, and it's just an attempt to get to know you more personally, how you came to know about Final Exit, if you're feeling strong enough to manage your equipment, if you can lift things and button buttons, and details about your living arrangement and the members of your family. And so when that is completed, the interviewer will write a detailed report for the coordinator. So then we've got these three parts: the medical records, the interview, and your statement of intent that comprise the application, the completed application. And this is then given to the medical evaluation committee. We have 7 doctors now who review these reports. And for each client, 3 doctors are assigned to the case, and they must unanimously agree that this person meets our criteria. And if they do, then you will be accepted for guide services. If 2 agree and 1 doesn't, we might invite a 3rd doctor to review. And if they do not agree, then you are turned down, and that ends your relationship with Final Exit Network. In many cases, the problem is if we just don't have enough, adequate records, and we ask the coordinator to get those records for us, and then the case goes on and is accepted. That's why getting adequate records in the beginning is important. Just to let you know that in this process of everybody reviewing your records and so on, we work really hard to keep everything strictly confidential and safeguard your history and the paperwork that you send to us. So after you meet or accepted for the guide program, the coordinator will find you a senior guide to work with, and this is usually based on geography. We pick someone that's close to you, and this is a person that you will work with now throughout the remainder of your experience with Final Exit. So the senior guides are reading all of these records. When we get a case, we pretty thoroughly know everything that everybody else knows, and the first step is that we would call you and introduce ourselves, and maybe spend an hour, 45 minutes on the phone, just going over, your situation, your condition, what changes there might be, and importantly, answering many questions that you already have up front. So we really try to establish a rapport and with you, and so you get to know a little bit about us and vice versa. So if the guide confirms that all the information in the application is sound and meets our criteria, and that they're appropriate for their inert gas method, the guide explains the next steps. And the next step would be that we would send you an equipment list that would provide all the information about what equipment you need to purchase. It all can be purchased online. We sometimes have recently had some trouble with getting the inert gas, but we've been able to find local distributors where people can purchase it. So that's, it takes at the most 7 to 10 days for you to get all of this equipment. So, we wait until you've got it and ask you to call us. And then we schedule an education visit. At this time, we assign also an associate guide to join the senior guide in the visit. And we always work in pairs like that. These are people who are training, maybe training to become senior guides themselves. And we recommend that this be scheduled fairly soon after this initial contact and that you've gotten equipment. And there's several reasons for this. You know, you may say, I expect to exit this summer, but your condition could deteriorate, and we want to avoid an emergency situation. We don't want, you know, all of a sudden you're in serious decline, and we have to sometimes have the first and second visit at the same time, and that's not good for you or for the program. So we like to come within the first 2 weeks or month of contacting you. And you can see where some of COVID people waited too long, and now we can't travel. So it's a good example of the need to get that first visit underway. So when we have that first meeting, we are again checking everything. You know, what this is the first time anybody from the program has seen you. We're looking at your limitations. We're looking at your living situation. You know, what kind of privacy you have. And we would like to meet any family or associates that you have at that first meeting, if they plan to be at the exit or you want them there. And they usually have a lot of questions, and we'd like to get to meet them. So we welcome those people at the first meeting. So all of the kind of final decisions about the appropriateness of us continuing the services is all left up to the senior guide at this point. You know, so sometimes new information comes up that we hadn't anticipated, but they are responsible for the planning here. As I kind of alluded to earlier, the times that we have gotten in trouble has been when some family members do not know, and legal trouble I'm talking about the client's plan, and we're pretty careful to explore this. And I wanted to share with you a couple of experiences I had, both a difficult one and then one with a good outcome. One man that I worked with was a single person, but he had 2 adult children that lived very close to him and were very involved in his life, and were very religious, and he did not want to tell them because he feared they would oppose it. And of course, given the closeness with his children, they were dropping in, and you know, we just knew that this had to take this step, so we worked very hard with him. He role played and gave him different things to read, you know, about telling them. But you know, what happened is that the next thing he knew after he began to discuss it with him is the authorities appeared at his home, and he was hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital against his will. And that was you know, extremely upsetting. But you can imagine, had we not taken that step, what their reaction would have been if he, you know, gone ahead behind their back and I mean, without informing them, and carried out his plan. There was another sister of somebody I worked with who was both religious and an attorney, and you know, vehemently was against the sister taking this step. And I was willing to talk to the sister at great length, and she really pretty much would not change her mind. But you know, the seeds were planted, and this person wasn't going to exit for some time, and over time, those seeds grew into acceptance, and she came to see that her sister had this right, and she would support it, and you know, not stand in her way. So we're pretty good at working with family members, and you know, I've had a lot of good success. I wanted to mention a movie that think again is important. It's called A Short Stay in Switzerland, where a woman that had a serious neurological disease and was going to end up with a dementia that she did not want to go through, wanted to make arrangements to go to Switzerland to the Dignitas program, and her 2 adult children, her husband and their father died, so they were mourning, were really angry about this, and called her selfish, and you only think about what you need, and but it's a really good movie that it shows the process whereby this woman was able to educate and share her thoughts with her children, and in the end, they went to Switzerland with her and accompanying her with support. So we often recommend that families, watch this because it's a good movie and it's helpful. Guides have many responsibilities throughout their involvement with the client. And see, I'm going to go over some of the issues that I may have touched on, but just elaborate when communicating with the client. Much of this information is obtained in the initial phone call that's made and the very first meeting. So again, it's important that we confirm with the client that they understand that a choice is being made and that they want to proceed. This is their decision, and nobody is influencing them to take this step. I don't think I've ever had anyone that has been influenced by the family, despite many of the critics who say that there'll be family members or cut people off financially, whatever, and coerce them into making this decision. I haven't seen it, but we want to make sure that this is their choice. Are they eligible for hospice? Would hospice benefit them? Are they eligible for the death with dignity law? There's pros and cons to all of these choices, and you can go with Final Exit Network, but if you are in a state and qualify for the Death with Dignity Act, that has its advantages. It's in some cases it's not free like our service is, but we do let them know what their options are. They assess their physical and mental window of opportunity, which I've described before. They must be mentally competent and able to follow directions and perform all required tasks without assistance. And as I talked about before, maybe, if the window of opportunity closes, we cannot be of any further assistance. Many of you may have seen or read the book, Still Alice. That's a good example of someone who misses her window of opportunity. She's a woman who has a dementia and does not want to, wants to take some medication she has hidden, so she won't go through the final stages and not know who she is. So the day comes when she wants to go ahead, and she has a note to herself in her computer and a file, and she is in the process of looking up where her pills are hidden, and the doorbell rings, or the telephone, I can't remember which, and she goes to deal with that, and then she goes back into the room and she thinks, what did I come in this room before? For? That happens to me occasionally, but she couldn't go forward. And so as we say, people with dementia have to leave some life on the table. And it's a hard decision to make when to do it. And I think that the people that you can rely on mostly to help you decide is your family. I had a case in La Jolla that it was a local case where a woman had a dementia, and when she finally decided that she was going to go forward, she called us, and the associate guide and myself went over, and she got angry at us for, I don't even remember why, and get out of my house. And so we had to leave, and then she called back again. Oh, I'm so sorry, I want you to come back. We went back, and she did the same thing again. And she was angry, and so we said, well, we'll give her one more time. And she called us on a good day, and we went back for the final time, and she was completely coherent, knew who we were, knew what day it was, knew who the president was, and why we were there, and she was able to achieve her wish to self-deliver. But this is a tough decision to know when to go forward. I think I've gone over the education visit pretty thoroughly, and we wanted to make sure that you have all the equipment. We confirm who will be present at the exit, and again, I've been over this, that we assessed your home and any family, friends that you want present at the exit. We discussed the exit timing, when it will happen, the site security, and be sure that the client will be undisturbed if they choose to exit. At this time, clients may wish to write a final letter explaining that if this is going to be, if they're going to leave the equipment present there, that they have taken this decision themselves. Nobody has coerced them into it, and this will be left at their bedside. Then also, who is going to discover the body? You have to have somebody, know that there's a body there. This can sometimes be done with people out of town that, they call the police, or you say that my good friend who's been really ill, I've been trying to call them, and they're not answering, and could you make a wellness check? But we have to have something, in place to discover the body and be able to notify the authorities. We also discuss what plans you've made for after your death, whether you want to be cremated, donate your body to science, buried, and we strongly recommend that this all be in place, before you exit. And then that first meeting, we do go through a process of making the equipment, of the client being educated on how to make the equipment, and rehearse the necessary steps for the self-hastening of their death. So we talk them through the process, and they have to be able to have the strength and the dexterity and so on to do all of this themselves, to assemble the equipment and carry out the process that's involved. So then we tell them we'll wait to hear from them when they're ready to go, and we often hear from them from time to time if they're doing well, just to check in, tell us any changes that's going on, and so we just leave it completely up to them to make that decision about whether they want to go forward and when. As with patients who get prescriptions through the Death with Dignity states, they have a number of clients who are approved and assigned and feel such relief that they have a way out, that they never go forward with their plan. And that happens with us. Sometimes people lose their window of opportunity, and sometimes people die without, getting us involved. Something changes, and we don't hear from them. But all of them are grateful to have a choice and for the support we've given them during their struggle with the end-of-life issues. In the final meeting, we review all of the plans that we've made for the discovery of the body and what's going to happen to the body afterwards. And we again confirm that they're making their own choice and they wish to proceed today. And we tell them that they could, we've traveled there or whatever. We've done, I drive or rent a car or take a boat. I've done just about everything to be with the client. We could change our mind. They could change their mind right here today and without any kind of problem. We respect their right to change their mind. As I said, all are really grateful to have this choice, and we then wait to hear from them. In talking with, if there are other people present at the exit, we will tell them what they might see that might be disturbing for them and to give them the choice to leave the room if they need to take care of themselves. We try to prepare them so they will be comfortable and be able to get through the process, without being disturbed about what they see. So finally, we guide the client through the final performance of this process and what they do on their own without assistance. We assure both the client and those present that we will support it throughout. I'm getting this mixed up. So after the client has died, we remain with those who are present and provide whatever emotional support is necessary. Before we leave, we remind them they are free to call us and with concerns, questions, emotional reactions, or simply want to talk. So I think this covers my, all of the things that I want to cover for telling you about the final exit network experience. This is very rewarding work. The people are extremely grateful for the relief that comes from knowing that they have choice and control over what happens to them if they are suffering to a degree beyond their endurance. It's takes a lot of courage and trust on the part of these people to make this decision. They're allowing relative strangers to come into their life and share this intimate moment, their final event in their life, and I really admire them, and it's a privilege and honor to be with them. As a volunteer, I've had in this organization, I've come to have some of the most powerful experiences of my life, and so I really think that the service that we offer to try to help people gain the last civil right that they don't have, which is the right to choose how they end their life.
Can I clap?
Thank you.
Clap. I want to clap, but I'm muted.
Camera is on.
Thank you, everybody, for participating in this pioneering Zoom presentation. I'm sorry about all the glitches technically, but I think you got the gist of it. Sally presented this very clearly, and now you know another alternative to medical aid in dying. Very important for you to know this. I hope you come to our next Zoom meeting, which is scheduled for July, maybe in June. We're still playing with this whole idea. But stay tuned to our website, which is hemlocksocietysandiego.org, and you'll get the notices about what's going to happen, and also gives you an opportunity to get on our email list and also to join. We really do appreciate membership, and we need all your contributions and donations because that keeps us going. We've been around now for 33 years. We are a service to the community, and we appreciate your support. Thank you very much.